Thanks for tuning in. You're watching The Urban Debate with me, Avni Raja. Today we are going to talk about the massive fire that broke out in a Mumbai high-rise building. 6 lives were lost, 6 families torn apart. And once again, in such a situation, lapses have come to light. The building itself, and the fire officer has said this, the building did not even have the fire safety equipment, the firefighting equipment that was functional. And on top of that, there was other lapses that also came to light. In fact, let's also get you some other details of what the fire audits, which were supposed to have happened in these high-rise buildings, those numbers tell us. The fire audit of 223 high-rises were conducted from November to January. 200 of those 223 high-rises were found completely non-compliant for fire safety norms. And time again, every time there's a fire tragedy of this sort, people lose their lives, this kind of lapses comes to light. So this is exactly what we are going to talk about. Let me welcome our guests who are joining in today. We've got Milind Kumar Deshmukh, who's the Director of Fire Safe India Foundation and also the former Director and Fire Advisor to the Government of Maharashtra. Dr. Neville Mehta, CEO of Mumbai First. Dr. Seema Malik, National Spokesperson of the NCP. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us on this show today. Let me, in fact, start with Dr. Neville Mehta, because you have been talking about this issue. You have raised this issue on multiple occasions. And the situation, especially if we talk about Mumbai, is extremely precarious given the number of high-rises and given that there is no proper mechanism, no proper audit to actually check whether these buildings are fire compliant.
I agree with you. We have brought this up in various discussions. We have talked about in various urbanization forums that the urbanization has to be planned. But the idea is there is a blame game. And I would like to make things here very clear before I say anything, that I do not intend to blame any particular authority or individual. What I'm saying is, if we have to get this done, it has to be a collective issue. It is as much a problem for the government and its regulatory departments to monitor it and evaluate, but it also becomes an onus of each individual, each society, each gated community to see that it complies with all the necessary acts and permissions and the safety requirements of their inmates and their guests and people who reside with them. So having said that, yes, if you go to look at what is happening, the upgradation and maintenance of equipment is one such issue that has been a perennial problem. Monitoring and evaluation, which you rightly mentioned just now, and what came out of your findings, is that there is no monitoring, and least of all, there is no evaluation at all, whether it's an act in place or whether there is an equipment that is required, whether it's serviced, whether it's maintained. There is nothing of that sort. And most importantly, even if I think information was exchanged between the various parties, I don't think that the government authorities have the bandwidth to have a unified or digitalized system of noting these things down and actually having the feasibility to monitor it and evaluate it. This has to be done on real-time basis. It cannot be done once in 6 years. It's a regulation which calls for once in 6 months. That's the act. But do you really have a bandwidth to actually keep in and feed in data that you get? So that's another question that comes up. Talking about mobility issues. I mean, in a few last year, if you remember, we had a fire in a very densely populated area, and the fire brigade vehicles could not even approach the vehicle. The building, because of the fact that there were so many cars and so many encumbrances on the road itself that they had to pass through. So there are various issues, and that's why I always say that there's no sense pointing a finger at one person, because it has to be a collective issue. And that's where I come up with Mumbai First stand, that there has to be a one window permission. There has to be one authority instead of having 5 different authorities who are not talking to each other and creating confusion. And in the meantime, the safety issues of individuals is at stake. I can go on, but I'm sure I have
yes,
a
absolutely, and that is the actual point there. Yes, let's bring in the other voices as well. But Dr. Neville, those are the important points that you've mentioned, because every time this happens, it becomes into a blame game, and there is nobody left to actually take responsibility and to figure this entire issue out. And Dr. Seema Malik, if I can come to you to respond to everything that Dr. Neville has said, because the issue here is that there are supposed to be systems and checks and balances in place, but it doesn't get implemented simply because there is lack of coordination between the multiple people who are supposed to be responsible for it.
Good evening, everyone. Even I was listening to Dr. Nawal, and as he said, it is a collective issue, and very wisely it is said. He said that we should not blame each other, and in fact, we should not politicize this thing. You know, we all are very sad. It is what has happened is very unfortunate, and only I can say is that, like, my heartfelt condolences to the families of the people who lost their lives, and I really wish a speedy recovery to the injured. And what has happened is really unfortunate. And as as we are in government, I would say that I can assure you that anybody who is responsible for this would not be spared. The investigations are on, as you know, and like our government has, everybody, like, they have taken an immediate action, whether it is our uh, vice chief minister or the Kishori Pednekar ji, or the Mr. Aslam Sheikh, or like Mr. Aditya Thackeray, everybody is, we are really concerned, and we have taken an immediate action. Our government has announced even a compensation of 5 lakh rupees to the people who have lost their life. And like, I'm not, I would say that, like, what has happened is really very unfortunate, and like, it should have not happened. But like, the experts are there. They are, as he said, that it is a collective issue, and we all should be, we all are, I think we say in a way, we are responsible, and we should take care of these things. So, like, what it is the truth that whenever these things happen, we start, blaming each other, and the things that way, I don't want to comment on this much. And see, the experts are there, and I think I'm not no one to comment.
No, but
on
Dr. Seema Malik, I mean,
Yeah.
compensation of 5 lakh really doesn't need to come into the conversation, because it means nothing to the families who've lost their loved ones. It absolutely means nothing to the families who've been torn apart.
I understand, ma'am, what you're telling.
And Kishori Pednekar, if I may just respond to that. Yes, and Kishori Pednekar, just to respond to your other point, she wasn't even aware of whether the building was, the audit was conducted, what is the process. So there was a lot that there is lack of awareness, even in the people who are supposed to be in charge. In fact, let me. Yes, please go ahead.
See, ma'am, this is again, we are, blaming someone, this is, I think this is not the time to blame. The things are under investigation, and I can assure you only this thing, that the action will be taken, who is responsible, who are the, the people, whether it is some officer or whatever it is, the action will be taken against them, definitely. But let the things be investigated, and only then we should start blaming, someone that way. I can only say that my government.
This is not about. I understand. I understand. This is not about blaming anybody. This is about holding people accountable, which is very different from blaming somebody.
Yeah. Exactly. So it's.
All right. I'll come back to you, Dr. Seema Malik. Yes. Yes, I will come back to you. Let me also bring in Milind Kumar Deshmukh as well. You have been the advisor, formally to the government of Maharashtra. This is not an issue that has been there recently. It is an issue that has been there for a long time across governments. What, in your experience, is the solution to this? What would you say? I think you're on mute, Mr. Milind Kumar. If you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm sorry for that. No, I said I agree with my previous speakers that we are not here to blame, nor you also intend to blame. But these are the situations where if we cannot discuss about the facts, I don't think we can learn any lessons out of these kind of tragedies. We all are sympathetic and empathetic to the families those who have lost their fellow members. But at the same time, we have to understand there are series of fires in the city of Mumbai during last 3 years. After every fire, there has been an investigation. And after the investigation, what lessons we have learned, what measures we have taken. I was no doubt the advisor for 16 years and I was a director to the state for 10 years. During my time only, the Maharashtra Fire Act was proposed by my department and the government got enacted it and brought into force. A simple acid test to mention here that we have a national building code, which is a benchmark sacrosanct document which is being accepted across the nation. And that document is considered as a benchmark document while making the development control rules or while doing the planning of the city as per the part 3 and the part 4 of the national building code. If you see the regulations in the Mumbai, and unfortunately the same regulation with minor corresponding changes, it is being rolled out to the whole state, and it is called as the Unified Development Control Rules or Development Control and Promotion Rules. Now there is so much of a disparity of the national code, which is, drafted and churned out by the experts from the different field. And this national code is quite in tandem or quite in parity with the international codes as well. So is Mumbai different than the international standards, the national standards, and they create their own standard? So before the regulator comes in picture, the rules are made in a way that we are giving the birth to the crippled building. For example, let me be very clear on that. We are allowing the building on a very narrow streets where there is no approach. By regulation, we have made a rule that the buildings can be constructed with a 1.5 meter and 3 meters of the setback area. Do you expect the fire trucks to stand there and the rescue appliances to operate from there? No. Number 3, we are compromising with the National Building Code says building above 15 meters should have minimum 2 staircases. Now in Mumbai is the only city where I see buildings up to 22 storey, 23 storey buildings are allowed with single staircase. So we are making the faulty structures. Then we say we have to do SRA, we have to do development, we have to do child development, the cess building development, and therefore we give lot of relaxations for such buildings. But while giving relaxation, I don't think there is a reason for giving any relaxation as far as the fire or life safety of the people is concerned. If you are in the elite society, you want the open marginal space of 9 meter or 6 meter to be maintained. But in this SRA or rehab building, which the building in Tardeo today has been the example, there you give lot of concessions where the building has only one single staircase. There are 6 to 8 tenements on each floor. The occupancy load of the building cannot be discharged in a given time, so proper evacuation cannot be conducted. You don't allow the lift to be used because you say the lifts are dangerous. Then how are you going to evacuate the old people, infirm persons, ambulatory patients, pregnant ladies, all that, how are you going to evacuate? So building code, national building code says that you have to have a tower or the fire shaft like structure. Now first step that what we are doing is the regulation itself is faulty. Number one, 90% buildings in Mumbai are going to be faulty. Number 2, the regulator job. Whatever is the rule made, and after that, whatever needs to be done, On that, the regulator should have control. The acid test of that again, the Maharashtra Fire Act, which was, I would say with a pride that it was a brainchild of me and my team, and government was kind enough to support me to get the enactment done. In 12 years, there are no, any prosecutions, convictions. So the conviction rate is going to be so low that in 12 years, one person cannot go behind the bar even for 6 months or 3 months, then there won't be a deterrent. Number two. Number three, the people's responsibility, the citizen empowerment, where we do through our organization now also a lot of awareness campaign in the program. The citizen itself has to be aware. Citizens, they spend 5 lakhs to 50 lakhs and a crore of rupees on the interior of the flat, but they don't maintain simple 2 or 4 extinguishers according to the size of the flat. If they are there, they do not know how to use it. So awareness on the flat where I am sitting now, if I am not concerned about my safety, my electrical installation, my gas installation, and I am not concerned about it, how do I blame any regulator when the regulator is going to, you don't take care of your health and you blame the hospitals or the doctors in the city? Is it possible? Is a practical way? Same is the case with the environment. You have EPA in 1986 in place, but if the people still start throwing the muck on the street, how do we achieve the environmental safety or the eco-friendly environment? So it is three-pronged approach that I propose. So together we have to work together. Bombay First can come forward, Fire Safe India can come forward, your channel can come forward, and it should not be the debate only on the day there is a fire. There has to be some systematic program where we empower the citizens. But that is not the forte of any media or any channel also, with due respect to all the channels. Why they are so alert and why they are so agile and active? Only when there is an incident, which is not correct. So together we have to strive. And the regulation of Mumbai is absolutely faulty. I take the onus in saying what I am trying to say. And we have to improve. The Bombay First can play the major role, because a long time I gave my lot of time and put a lot of efforts through the Bombay Chamber of Commerce, which is a sibling of the Bombay First. So we can work together, and at least we have to see that, the regulators or the rule makers are alerted on these issues, at least for the safety purpose. You want to use FSI. So on 10,000 square feet flat, you want to have a tower of 25 story building. How can you achieve this safety? Thank you so much.
Yes, point taken, Mr. Deshmukh. Completely agree with you on some of the points that you've raised with respect to how it has to be the responsibility not just of those who are regulating, but of the citizens themselves. And Dr. Neville, I want to come to you because there are two parts here as far as Mumbai is concerned. One, of course, is the very densely populated areas, which have a lot of these old buildings, and that sort of needs a complete overhaul in terms of, the fire safety and all of that. The other is high-rises like what we've seen today, or whether it was the Kamala Mills fire, where it is slightly easier to ensure that at least these buildings, these places have a proper fire safety equipment in place and proper protocols in place. Of course, this is a wide topic with the city of Mumbai, but let's talk about this factor, because if we look at this information that fire officials have told us, there were 223 high-rises where the fire audit was done. 200 of those 223 high-rises were found to be non-compliant. Now, why can simply an example not be set with some of these high-rises, strict action to be taken? Everybody else will automatically fall into place.
So let me tell you something that, what you're telling me is, I think, the same story that is being repeated every time a fire takes place. And every time we go into the research mode, and we come out with the same old story, that the fact in the bottom line being that we have not yet learned our lesson, or maybe we've not yet learned how to do it the right way. There are, as Mr. Milindji said, that there are rules and there are experts. There are urban experts we have in India. We have a lot of help which comes out from organizations like European Union, OECD, which are ready to bring in information, technology, and knowledge from all other parts of the world. But the question here is not the rules. The question here is not the information or the knowledge. The question here is, Can we legislate morality? The morality of monitoring, the morality of evaluation, and the morality of doing the job that you are assigned to and that you're paid for doing it. If you do not get that angle of morality in place, then any rules that you make will be excellent on paper. Every time we have a research, will be absolutely right. We'll come out with the right figures of saying out of 2,000 buildings, only 10 were compliant. But the question is, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to change the scenario? How are we going to say that in the next 50 years down the line, we will not have the same thing repeating? And for that, we need to work together. We need to have things placed together. We need to have an effective citizens action group. Just for your information, Mumbai First is a part of an empowered committee, which is headed by the chief secretary, and the citizens action group, which is also formed by a GR, which is again headed by the chief minister. And the question over here is, these are the committees. This is what it requires. Mumbai First had come out with the war room that you see on the 6th floor of Mantralaya. That was made and brainchild of Mumbai First and McKinsey. And now, after 13 years, they realize the importance of war rooms, and therefore you now see every authority organization from the government is just talking about war rooms. But we did this 13 years ago. Now today is again time to introspect whether we have the bandwidth to implement what we are putting down on paper. Now, for instance, as you said,
Yes.
one window permissions, I mean, why is it that the NOC is given by the MCGM without consulting the fire officers or the fire safety people? Whether that is in place, if that is in place, then you give an NOC. But the question is, if you go to the fire officer, I'm sure you will come to know that you say, I was not consulted. The NOC was given without my permission. So the question over here is, you have to have a close communication between departments. And that is the biggest problem that we in Mumbai and Maharashtra are facing. Not in Maharashtra, I would say, almost everywhere in India. It's time to have a actual one window authority and place which one person takes the accountability and charge. Another thing that comes out very clearly, which I must bring, is how many people know how to douse a fire in their own homes? And that's a question that I would like to ask, and I would like you, as a leading newspaper, to run a poll on this, and you will realize that very few people are aware of how to do that. This is another issue of how to bring about advocacy and awareness.
Yes, fair enough. I completely agree with you. Fire safety awareness is something which is extremely low, among a lot of people, and that is something that also needs to be taken up. But Dr. Seema Malik, coming back to you here, I want to very categorically ask you, this is not about blame games. This is not about, shifting blames one way or the other. It's not about the compensation. It's not about taking stock of the situation that every time this kind of an incident happens, we hear these words coming in from the state government. The fact is anything being done to overhaul the system? That is question number one. Question number two is whether there is actual proper action that's going to be taken against anybody who's found responsible, because that has not happened in the past. And I can give you a list of all the fires that have happened where no action has been taken.
See, Avni, whatever you are telling, I cannot deny everything that. You see, their difficulties are there, and as said, you said, and the experts said that it's a awareness and a collective, and it's a collective issue, and that awareness and everything is very important. Actually, like we all have to do the efforts for this. As I was listening, and and we know that there are some structural, these things are there, like there's a one stair and there is no lift, and this, these are the common things which are, since so many days, these things are there. And how to, our government, and I think the previous government, and everybody is trying to, we are putting our efforts to, rectify these things. We are listening to the experts, and we are doing all these efforts. But this is really unfortunate that this has happened in past also, and today also. So nobody can deny that. And
Right.
I must say that there
All
should be a
right.
collective affair. It is the responsibility of everyone. You cannot, pinpoint someone.
All right.
This thing.
Dr.
So
Seema Malik, I'm
I can
afraid
only say
we are
this. I
completely
would
out
not
of
like
time.
to,
What's
I would not-
unfortunate here
Yeah.
is that I have not got any of the answers that I was actually looking for. And the fact here is that there seems to constantly be that this thing of we need to take a collective responsibility. But at the end of the day, in trying to do that, there is nobody who's taking any responsibility for what's happened and what the fire after fire that keeps happening. And that is the biggest problem. The entire system needs complete overhauling, which has absolutely not happened. There needs to be accountability and responsibility that needs to be set for these issues. And that has not happened. And on top of all of that, when somebody is found responsible, there is no action that is taken. So obviously, nobody feels that it's important to maintain fire safety. Those responsible feel they can just get away with it. And that is where the root of this entire problem lies. And we see fire after fire happening in Mumbai cities. These are the questions that actually need to be answered. Thanks for watching.